This is the Tools to Thrive podcast with Evelyn Cook, where we uncover powerful business tools that will help you scale your business so you can retire richer than you ever dreamed possible. Now is your time to thrive. To learn more about how Evelyn Cook can help you scale your business with Tools to Thrive, visit www.cookcpagroup.com.
Evelyn Cook of Cook CPA Group, and I'm here with Colin Baker and Matt Meyer of Ringgold Distilling, LLC. And today we're just going to chat about their company, their brand, and their experiences as business owners and the challenges and successes they've had with their business. When COVID happened, what were some of your what was your initial thoughts? What were you afraid was going to happen when COVID happened?
I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
You guys had fires, you've had permit, government. I mean, is this like, oh, this is going to be the thing that really shuts us down?
Well,
it was scary.
Initially, it was very scary because initially we didn't have the hand sanitizer option. So I was looking at this, or we were looking at this and being like, all of our restaurant business is going to be gone. I don't think a lot of contract stuff is going to happen right now because of
Just put everything on hold.
It's going to put everything on hold, and we still have a lot of overhead just being here. But then, we started hearing about hand sanitizer, and then the TTB and the FDA gave us the go-ahead to do hand sanitizer, and that just became. It was just like this frenetic, just get as much out the door as you possibly can for a couple months. I mean, literally tanker loads of hand sanitizer.
What was the learning curve to figure out how to go from making gin to hand sanitizers?
It was pretty interesting because it had to happen so fast because you were getting these orders in. And so we were trying to find ethanol from certain sources and stuff like that and figure out what was okay and what wasn't okay. Certain batches weren't as good as others.
We got some pretty bad quality batches that we just we didn't even want to touch.
Well,
like just in samples.
That's why you're not on the list of what hand sanitizer.
Yeah,
exactly.
And
some of the lab analysis that we got back from these samples that we were getting in, we're like, holy crap, you have benzene levels that are 40 times the short-term exposure.
And that's because a lot of these things are coming from fuel ethanol, which it doesn't matter because your car doesn't react to benzene. Like you can't, your car can't get cancer.
But benzene will give you cancer.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And it's really, really bad. And that's something that it's funny that they haven't focused on more.
They've been talking about methanol primarily.
Talking about methanol a lot, but benzene, I think, is one thing to be really careful about.
Oh. Good to know.
So we made sure every batch that we got had non-detectable
benzene. Yeah, for all of it. But so we switched, and then we got a few really big customers and ended up moving a ton. And we're still moving hand sanitizer. It's not as crazy as it was.
The bigger companies have kind of caught up a little bit to the demand.
Yeah, but
there's still definitely demand for it from us.
Yeah, but now the contract side is starting to come back.
If I had to guess, because we had a lot of contracts that were pretty close to the goal line right before COVID hit.
It's true.
And and then about 2 or 3 months in, my guess is probably during that time they were just thinking about how to potentially go ahead with things, so they had a lot of time. And then about 2 months later, a lot of them just started coming in. So my guess is that's probably what happened, is that the COVID put it on hold, but it allowed them to get their ducks in a row and then come back and be relatively aggressive with getting things started. Which has been great for us because, again, the hand sanitizer business has dried up a little bit. I don't think it'll dry up completely, at least not until the end of the year. So
we're allowed to do it through the end of the year. They might extend it beyond that,
depending what happens.
But at the end of the day, revenue's revenue.
Yeah.
But I would kind of rather it be from what I'd consider our normal business. It seems more what we are prepared for.
Although if it does turn out that we're doing decent hand sanitizer, I've had a couple of preliminary discussions with an attorney to see if it's possible to kind of spin it off.
Make it a fully FDA
and get a full FDA compliant facility, which, there's still compliance that we had to do in getting hand sanitizer, but they were slightly different types of regulations because of the pandemic.
And much more lenient.
Yeah.
Which is why you have methanol on the market.
Yes. Okay.
And that's actually, we were talking about that for a while. It's one of those situations where, a few people make it so that regulations have to be stricter. It's like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Yes. Yeah. The
but,
few bad
yeah.
apples
Yeah.
kind of created more barriers. for you
Exactly.
guys.
But we got audited by the FDA,
Yep.
which actually was a good thing because we passed. And so we can tell people, hey, the FDA was here and they signed off on what we're doing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the reason why is because we were moving so much. And one of our major clients got audited, and they were like, "Oh, where are you getting this from?" And so
Okay.
they came and audited us.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, it's got to keep us safe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was always safe. But it was
Yeah.
always scary having an FDA inspector.
Yeah.
And then
the
we had an
facility.
EPA inspector the other day too, like right after that. But we've been past, we've been
Even if
making
you're
sure
doing everything right, having an inspector in
it's
your
just
facility is
scary.
always
Yeah.
super fragile.
And,
Yeah, correct.
and we're confident that we do everything right. So far we have, but it is, it's a little nerve-wracking when you hear that someone's coming
Yeah.
to take
Yeah.
a look. I think if it wasn't for the contract work coming in, and especially the hand sanitizer, we would have been in a much worse position.
Yeah, it'd be very hard.
And that's what we were staring down the barrel at that until we
Sure.
had the opportunity. So it was a really stressful time.
Yeah, and the hand sanitizer really helped. I mean, because that was just a boon for a while.
Well,
Just
and
Totally
also-
out the
unexpected.
door.
Yeah.
And also it helped us with our contacts in the community because we did a lot of outreach
Yeah.
and donations to various groups, hospitals and non-for-profits, and very low. We'd sell at a very cheap rate to like for-profit places.
Yeah, we gave stuff to basically every county in the
Yep.
area. I think like literally every major winery
We went
management
around to the
or
restaurants.
vineyard management firm.
Oh,
When the restaurants started opening for the first time in Napa, we went around and got just made sure that they had sanitizer.
Oh,
and,
that's really awesome.
Yeah, so it also brought us closer to the community, which is always a good thing. I mean, I hate the fact that it took a pandemic, to do that. But anytime you can help the community, it is kind of it actually helped me get out of bed because it was really hard
It gave you a
during
purpose.
that time, especially when we didn't know that we had the hand sanitizer. Just getting out of bed was tough, and
Yeah.
completely and when we then had the opportunity not only to do the hand sanitizer for the business aspect, but also just being able to help like that.
Yeah.
It was kind of
really-
interesting, like people coming to us almost in tears.
Yeah.
Like I'm not exaggerating. Like
Well,
especially early on,
Yeah.
like nursing homes and stuff
Because
like
they had
that.
no one
Because
knew what-
no one had it.
Yeah.
And they
So
call
you
us up,
couldn't
you're like,
get
yeah,
in.
do you want? Yeah, we can give you.
Who would have
Give
thought
you
that
1,000
some of
gallons
those
if you want.
major websites would be completely sold out of that stuff instantly?
Yeah.
Demand shocks can be
Yeah.
just as crazy as natural. It's like a natural disaster, but in the economy.
Yeah. You guys have had some environmental things that have happened. That I remember you signed your contract with the distributor, and there was some sort of fire here in Napa. How did they impact these environmental? Because there was a fire, and was there an earthquake, or was it just a fire?
So the earthquake was before. The earthquake was before we came here.
Okay.
And how that affected us is the city wanted us to earthquake-proof everything, which I understand, but
Okay.
there's a lot of expense that goes along with that.
Sure.
I mean,
there's some danger of having a still, right? I mean, there's some.
Oh, there
there's
is.
some exposure.
Oh,
of
yeah,
blowing
it's,
up. And it's a little bit more exposure from a local region versus
Yeah.
a winery.
Well, and that's why we have this whole segment walled off from the rest of it, because this is technically an H3 space. It's a different hazard classification,
Okay.
and so we have to have a firewall there, a dedicated 4-inch sprinkler main, secondary containment, circulation going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on backup power, explosion-proof everything.
Oh, wow.
But in terms of the earthquake stuff, actually, the stills are less problematic than the larger tanks because the stills are at least a little bottom heavy.
Yeah.
Whereas for those tanks, we had to put
Base
in a
plates this
bunch
big.
of concrete. And then, what is it, 12-inch, 20?
So we had to put 8 inches of rebarred concrete on top, plus I think it was another 8 inches below. With some of them had like 16 by 12 half-inch thick stainless steel base plates
Oh, wow.
drilled into the ground.
Okay.
So a bomb would go off here, and
And
those
everything
will
would-
always be here.
Okay.
The building will fall down before the still, or the tanks
Before those
will
tanks fall
over.
down. And even these, I mean, the base plates that we have on
Yeah.
the stills are huge. The reinforcement that we had to pay for Carl, our still manufacturer, to do. I mean, I could go on and on and on about the things that we had to do to make this space suitable.
In my mind, the barriers to entry of operating a distillery are so extreme
Yeah.
that the capital investment is a lot of dollars. So I can see why your ability to leverage the awesomeness of your facility to contract manufacturing
Yeah.
is going to be something I think I would always advise you to kind of look at that first.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be way less capital intensive for those other distillery operations.
Exactly. Well, in smaller distilleries, I forget what the limit is, but there's a certain limit on how much ethanol you store. And if you're under that limit, all the stuff that applies to us doesn't apply.
Okay.
And I think that might be a reason why, by and large, craft distilleries are a lot smaller than what we are.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I could see that affecting it, because the amount of money you have to put in to this is a lot.
Yeah. It is.
And a lot of effort, too. Design, effort.
Yeah. So when the fires happened, how did that impact your business, and how did you what was your pivoting process?
So for the fire, we were actually pretty well positioned because the fire wasn't anywhere close to us. We had to close down for, it was about a week.
Yeah, that was the most recent fire.
That was the most recent
fire. When power was out everywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously with the power out, we still had the ventilation fueling because we have to keep that on 24/7 even if we're running nothing. But yeah, we had to shut down for about a week.
Yeah.
With no power.
But it actually kind of created an opportunity for us because we distill quite a bit of smoke taint wine here.
Interesting.
So obviously it's not a good thing, but people are sending us wine that they can't
they're going to have to
sell,
pour down the drain.
but you can make a damn good brandy out of it. And if you want to strip the smoke taint out, you can run it through our column. That strips it out.
Okay.
So it's
like kind of helped. Actually, that environmental disaster kind of hopefully got you a little bit more enmeshed.
Yeah, it didn't really affect us as much as wineries, because for them, my gosh, if you had smoke taint grapes, you can't do anything.
Correct. Yes. So what other sort of unexpected challenges have you encountered being business owners?
Permitting.
Yeah. So one of the absolute hardest things to do was getting, not the licensing refers to like the national and California licensing for distilleries. It was getting the local government to work with us to be able to do this project. And for American Canyon, they didn't have a section for distilleries. They have sections for all kinds of wineries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we basically had to write a set of rules for a distillery.
To be fair, American Canyon did a great job helping with us. So as much as it was frustrating, it was just as frustrating for them because it was something we worked together on it because they have their obligations to the state as well and to the county. So they, it's important. As annoying as it was, it's not on the city of American Canyon at all. It's just the process. So and I want to thank them as well just for being
American Canyon
really
has been really good to us.
Yeah, I just think the distillery industry, there's a little bit more permit challenges.
Exactly.
Because of the nature of the stills.
Yeah, and we were telling them, we're going to be running 94% alcohol off these stills, and they're like, what? And so we had to get consultants in, and wastewater was a huge issue here. And basically, it always came back to, their default was to treat us like a winery, and we're not a winery. Mm-hmm. So there's
a lot more education.
That's another topic that we could talk for an hour about. But those are the kind of issues, and every jurisdiction's different.
True.
If we tried to go a little bit up county, it almost certainly couldn't
There's no way we could have built this up valley. No way.
You think so?
Yeah. For a lot of reasons.
Well, all it would take is one person in the council area to hold it up for years. And at that point, it's obviously not viable for us.
Yeah. Well, so what impact did this have on your business model? The unexpected cost or the delays?
Oh, it was delays.
Yeah. Was it like a 6-month delay?
Probably close to that, and then maybe a little bit.
Well, I mean, it delayed us a little bit, but we had an even bigger delay that kind of.
Are you talking about PG&E?
No, it's more the just the fact that our first construction team. The first people we brought in to quote us on the construction came in
double
what we were looking to do,
and actually double what we ended up paying.
Yeah. And that was a delay. That was like an 8-month delay finding.
And this was a very, considered a very high-end construction firm.
Sure.
And I went back and I spent, I can't even tell you how much time, like going through how much piping we should have in here, how much all that should cost, and kept coming back to them and be like, no, it shouldn't be this much. And so we ended up going out to bid again and went with E.F. Anderson.
Yeah, Eric F. Anderson.
Yeah, Eric F. Anderson.
They were great.
Such a good construction company. And that's having good contractors, especially when you're having a build out like this, is so important. I mean, it's one of those things that when you don't have a good one, you really notice it.
Oh,
and as soon as they got going,
you really noticed the difference.
As soon as they got going with the project, there were no real delays. I mean, there are obviously the day or two here, day or two there.
PG&E's the latest for
PG&E got us
at least 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're still, so what was it? So you designed the still yourself. What was the time frame from that, the production getting done? It was pretty quick once the still arrived. You got that installed. It was all the, I'm not, reverse osmosis filtration system.
Yeah.
That took a little bit. So it all kind of was laid out, and then the still arrived, and then you got it installed.
Yes.
And then you were kind of operational?
Kind of. So basically, the construction people did all of like the groundwork. They call it like stubbing out, up to the point where you have to connect to the equipment.
Okay.
So they did all of that work ahead of time. Same thing with all the stuff on the other side of the wall.
Okay.
And so then you bring all the equipment in, and then there's still quite a bit of work to be done, but it's not nearly as much as getting everything else done.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly how long. The stills took a little bit longer because there was so much electrical.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that electrical stuff came from Carl in Germany, rather than and the electrician then had to set it up instead of the electrician being able to do.
I remember
all
when
of it ahead of
when
time.
the stills arrived, it was almost like the world's most complicated IKEA project.
Oh yeah, with no instructions.
Yeah, it came with came with like very basic type instructions.
Well,
like,
that's why they sent the Germans.
Yeah, they
out.
sent someone directly from Carl out to help us, 2 people. But when we first saw all the pieces, it was laid out like just a giant, like each pipe was separate.
Well, I have a picture of Jesse with literally just a pile of piping, and it just what do we do? But then Alexander Plunk from Carl came over, and he was like, "Oh, that goes there, and that goes there, and this goes here," and he's hanging off this. He's just madman. But yeah, we finally got it done. That was actually a pretty fun process. It took a while, but it was really pretty fun.
We have a little monument to him as well on our still. If you see those the shorts and gloves, he would wear those over his pants and stuff while he was setting it up.
We never knew that he took his pants off in here, but apparently did.
Well, and apparently, he apparently left them. So we just, and he did such a great job, and so we just figure, we have that. We look at it every time.
We kind of think of him.
We think
really
about
cool.
and the company and everything they did for us.
In my opinion, Carl makes the best stills in the world.
I agree.
Everybody has their opinion, but that's fine.
Well,
that's why we bought them.
And to some extent, there's not just opinion, but there's a lot of just technical things they do to stills that other places won't do.
Yeah.
Especially involving the steam jacketing.
You're able to leverage the design, the expertise that you can concoct into yourself. Is that what's allowing you to get more contract manufacturing and diversify your product line so quickly?
Well, yeah. The stills do exactly what we designed them to do. So if somebody wants an agave spirit like we're doing, we can make an agave spirit. And, the type of stills we have, I mean, they can do almost any type of distillation. It has to be something pretty strange.
Okay.
More or less, to be something that we can't do.
So you'd recommend for people to not build their own distillery process and contract with you then?
Well,
because I think the capital infrastructure is so high that's a pretty big barrier to entry to something.
It is. So one thing that we are really fortunate about is we're working with 3 stills in this facility. A lot of distilleries, particularly smaller distilleries, are using 1, if they're lucky, 2 stills, and each still is built for a specific purpose. Like we have our stripping still, we have our spirit still that's outfitted differently than that. We have our botanical still that's outfitted differently than that. So we have, instead of trying to make one still do everything, we have each still that does its one job and does it better than any of the other stills can do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So anything that you've learned from this that you'd like to share with other people getting into the industry? Like what would you do differently? Or, I mean, I know sometimes you like learning experiences that you wouldn't have not wanted to go through that process.
Permitting's a big thing. That's something that I didn't know. I mean, know your jurisdiction and be nice to them because they hold your fate in your hands.
For a lot of jurisdictions, that's going to be new to them as well.
Exactly,
so
and be patient.
Depending on your population density, you guys are a little bit isolated here.
Yeah.
But I think if you're trying to build in a downtown center, you think you're going to be able to get your facility plus a tasting room, it's probably going to be challenging.
Yeah. I think construction will always cost more than you think it does. That's another thing. Take your construction budget and triple it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm serious, just triple it.
Yeah.
And take the time that you think it's going to take and at least double it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And double it, yeah.
And then take your projections and cut them in half. And then I think that gives you an idea of kind of...
Yeah.
Okay. What other challenges do you think kind of caught you off guard?
Construction. And I know we've been over this, but this is not an easy build out. And in some ways it was kind of interesting. We always had kind of the stills, like that was there, and we had the controls that were going to be on the stills and everything like that. But it kind of built out from there, and a lot of times, several times, we had these kind of points where we could do it the more simple way and save a little bit of money, but not be as good operationally, or spend a little bit more money and have a more badass system. And we kind of always ended up on the more badass side of it.
Well, and part of it is practical too, because one of the big issues is we were building this out in a drought. So we needed to make sure that we had a guarantee that we would get enough water to be able to do everything
That's
we wanted.
why we ended up here.
Which is exactly why we ended, exactly. This building had a previous will serve contractual obligation for water. So
that
we
applied to future tenants, which is odd.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we were able to get the water that we needed, but in order to really convince them to do that, we had to over-design our process. And also, it's a good thing. We don't waste water. A lot of distilleries can just will throw water through the condenser once or twice, maybe. Or dump it.
And the cleaning system that we have, it's actually built for the dairy industry.
Really?
Which in some ways has higher cleaning standards.
You have to deal with those fats.
Yeah, it has higher cleaning standards in a lot of ways than most of the pharmaceutical industry, because of all the fats.
Yeah, that fat
and
is
stuff.
just brutal to get out.
Yeah, very, very difficult. But it's so over-engineered that we end up only using about 10% of the water that a standard CIP system would use.
Okay.
And in most breweries, distilleries, wineries, cleaning water is your biggest consumer of water. For us, it's not.
Oh, interesting.
It's the other way around. It's production stuff, which is odd.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, we had going back to my previous point, we had all these decision points where, we could just do it a more complex way, and we kept doing that. But it allows us to run this place very well with a very limited staff.
It wasn't just doing complex for the sake of
the sake of it.
I mean, each one gave pretty big benefits that, again, were not necessary to the plan, but again, in pitching it to the investors, we were already going big, so if, this extra thing is an additional 10 to 20,000 or, I'm just spitballing numbers here. It's, 10% more to do it this way. We would generally go with that unless it was really unnecessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it really didn't give us any
So you were able
value.
to kind of explain to the investors and the engineering team.
There was always a reason
business
why
purpose
we were doing it that
and how
way.
it's going to optimize revenue going
Yeah.
forward.
And pretty much every time we made one of those decisions, we ran it by the investors, and they pretty much approved most, if not all, of the important ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we were able to make our case pretty well.
And if you look at this facility too, this is not a touring facility. This is a production facility.
Sure.
All of the money and effort went into making this a good production facility. And it shows. I mean, we have two people for safety, but we can have one person running all three stills.
Oh, wow.
That's it.
That's awesome.
We have two people here because we need to, but
we don't,
don't
want to do that.
The amount of labor that we need to do this and do it well is very low.
Yeah, for
Although as we get more contract work, it's going to be, we're going to go from single distillations to doubles, and hopefully in a year we're able to run basically 24/7. But that's
at that point we might need more staff.
That
But then
will
again,
definitely need staff.
It's
at that
only
point,
two.
but-
It's only 2 people a shift though.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
That we
Okay.
need
Okay.
to run it.
Yeah. So I want to thank Colin and Matt for joining us today and learning more about their distillery business and what
course.
their
Yeah, thanks
plans
for
are
having
for
me.
the future. It was really fun.
Thanks for having us on this.
Yeah, it
We'll have
was.
to do this again and kind of see as we work forward what this looks like 6-8 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's great to see. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much again.
Yeah, thank
Thank you.
you.